Can someone walk me through mining economics for a miner?
2010, it was free money. I'll let some of the bigger facility guys answer that one because they feel that in their soul.
Anything but free, right? So what's fascinating about Bitcoin is not only is it just groundbreaking tech and like really forward-looking technology and just innovation that I think is obviously unique to the world, is the understanding of the economics and the way currencies and even just human nature to some extent, the way that it's designed is just quite amazing. And when you start to think about it, the way that even things like difficulty adjust over time to ensure that there's always some sort of computational power put forth to continue the network forward is just, it's so forward thinking, it's pretty amazing. And to think that it's been, this was all put together 13 years ago in a white paper and then created, and here we are, and it's creating a whole new industry and a whole new ecosystem. But when you start to think about, the main costs of how do miners make their money, it's somewhat simple. It's the cost of acquisition of the equipment. What does that look like? We normally measure that on a per terahash type basis. We talked a lot about this earlier, but what cost you get in at certainly matters and impacts it. Then it's your OpEx, right? Like what is your electricity and what is your overall operating costs when you're a hosting provider like Compute North and, Core Scientific and Compass, you're aggregating that down and normally giving it one simple number. But if you're a self miner and you're just looking at yourself, that energy component is crucial. And then making sure your overhead is extremely important. I think understanding that in a down market, that low cost wins. Russell alluded to this. The reason miners are really cheap is that there's up markets and down markets, and the experienced guys have lived through both. And you got to be really smart and really thoughtful about the way that you purchase and buy electricity so you can work through any market. And we're seeing this right now. I mean, I'm definitely aware of customers that are taking very high priced energy because they see the opportunity cost and they're ready to roll with it. And it looks great. But the problem is when you always take things up into the right, you really got to think through what's that sensitivity analysis look like in a different case scenario. Those of us have been in the market, in the industry for some time, know that things can and do change. And when all this new hash power comes on board, it's going to 2x it. When there's another halvening, you're going to, your revenue is going to increase by half again. What happens to the price of the coin? Nobody knows. And I think just really being, so you got to manage what you can control. And those are your costs, and that's being thoughtful. And I think to what Russell talked about earlier, the way to get the lowest cost is just being very, very thoughtful about your energy purchase. Use interruptibility, using curtailment, using demand response programs to really be, a strategic element to the grid, getting behind the grid and not being a burden on it as much as possible. Leveraging the fact that it's hundreds of megawatts, it's 95% plus load factor. And I mean, that type of load is like Christmas to energy and power companies. And I concur with what Russell said too, is that is the biggest, I think, mandate and the loudest voice that has a track record that can really change the whole narrative on the industry of how does this go from this power FUD to really being not just about, the next generation of compute and what we call Compute North, the tier 0 computing, right? And it's an exciting place to be. And I think it's going to continue to be very thrilled with different changes here over the course of the next 24 months.
I would add just a little bit. There's one more cost in there that's real important, and we're experiencing it right now, and Dave is too, and that's capital needed for the infrastructure. It's huge, transformers and switch gears. But I also want to say, along with the Bitcoin network, as far as mining is concerned, I'm always fascinated by how it's really new tech and new economy meets old economy. And like at Core, we transferred an old Levi's plant. We've turned to old smelting plants, old carpet flooring plants, and old power infrastructure. So like really old school switch gear, transformers, all that kind of stuff. Stuff that's we built the industrialized world on is now being repurposed in a way for what I think is going to be the way the economy moves for the next 100 years or even more. So I find that part just fascinating.